Welcome to Mindcast, a new form of conversation that uses AI to bring together virtual representations of government entities to explore innovative solutions for the greater good. I'm your host, Camaron Foster, and I'm passionate about using AI to dive into uncharted territory and find new pathways for cooperation and progress. Today, we'll be joined by three of the most influential organizations in the U.S. aviation industry: the Federal Aviation Administration, FAA, the Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, and the National Transportation Safety Board, NTSB. They'll be sharing with us their expertise on the transition of small aircraft away from lead-based fuels and reducing the industry's impact on the environment. We'll learn about the FAA's role in promoting this transition, the EPA's enforcement of regulations to reduce lead-based emissions, and the NTSB's efforts to promote innovation in aviation propulsion. So buckle up and let's dive into uncharted territory on this exciting episode of Mindcast. Now, before we get started, it's important to remember that the opinions and views shared in this episode are for educational and research purposes only, and do not reflect the opinions of the represented government entities, the government as a whole, or the hardworking individuals who make it all happen. So let's dive into the heart of the matter. The aviation industry is a major contributor to carbon emissions, and finding ways to reduce these emissions is of the utmost importance. But what are the most promising alternative fuels currently being researched? And how can the FAA and EPA collaborate to support their development and implementation?
Thank you, Camaron. The FAA understands the importance of reducing emissions in the aviation industry and is actively researching alternative fuels that can help us achieve this goal. Currently, the most promising alternative fuels are biofuels and synthetic fuels, which have the potential to reduce the carbon footprint of commercial aviation significantly.
That's correct. Biofuels and synthetic fuels have a lower carbon intensity than traditional aviation fuels and are renewable energy sources. We at the EPA can work together with the FAA to support their development and implementation through policies and regulations that promote the use of alternative fuels in the aviation industry.
That's great to hear. Can you share some specific examples of how the FAA and EPA can collaborate to promote alternative fuels in the aviation industry?
Sure. Together, we could create incentives for airlines to use alternative fuels such as tax credits or subsidies. This will encourage airlines to invest in the research and development of alternative fuels, which will help reduce costs and increase their availability.
And we can also work together to create regulations that require airlines to use a minimum percentage of alternative fuels in their operations. This will create a demand for alternative fuels and drive their development and implementation. And, of course, we would need to come together to enforce these regulations and ensure that commercial aviation is doing its part to reduce emissions.
And what about reducing emissions from commercial aviation? How can the FAA and EPA collaborate to achieve this goal?
We can work together to create regulations that limit emissions from commercial aviation, such as emission standards for aircraft and engines. We can also work together to promote new technologies that reduce emissions, such as electric aircraft and hydrogen fuel cell technology.
That's right, and we can partner with the FAA to collaborate on research and development projects that aim to reduce emissions from commercial aviation, such as developing more efficient aircraft designs and improving flight operations.
The FAA has been actively promoting the use of unleaded fuels in aviation and providing support to the industry to facilitate the transition.
And while the FAA provides support, the EPA, as the agency that enforces leaded fuels, has implemented strict regulations on lead emissions from aircraft, and has been monitoring and enforcing compliance to reduce the overall lead emissions from aviation.
The NTSB has also been working to raise awareness about leaded fuels' harmful effects and promote the benefits of transitioning to unleaded fuels. By engaging with the public, we hope to build support for change and encourage more investment in alternative fuel technologies.
That's great to hear. What are some of the specific policies that describe this transition, and what sort of challenges and limitations are there in the implementation?
Sure. The FAA has been working on several initiatives to encourage the use of unleaded fuels, including providing incentives for operators to make the transition and working with industry stakeholders to promote innovation in aviation propulsion. However, some challenges still need to be addressed, such as the limited availability of unleaded fuel options and the need for investment in research and development of alternative fuel technologies.
The EPA's regulations on lead emissions from aircraft are strict and have effectively reduced lead emissions from aviation. However, implementation of these regulations can be challenging, and there may be a lag in adoption by the industry.
The NTSB's role in promoting the transition to unleaded fuels is to raise awareness about the harmful effects of leaded fuels and to promote the benefits of transitioning to unleaded fuels. We are also working to encourage investment in alternative fuel technologies and to support the development of new technologies that can reduce the environmental impact of aviation.
That's certainly a complex issue. Are there any new technologies or strategies the FAA, EPA, and NTSB are exploring to promote the transition to unleaded fuels and support innovation in aviation propulsion?
Yes, the FAA is actively researching and exploring new technologies and strategies to promote the transition to unleaded fuels, including electric vertical takeoff and landing eVTOL vehicles, biofuels, and hydrogen-powered aircraft.
The EPA is also keeping a close eye on the development of these technologies and is exploring ways to incentivize their adoption and reduce barriers to their implementation.
The NTSB is also committed to this and contributes through investment in research and development and collaboration with industry stakeholders to support the development of new technologies and strategies that contribute to reducing the environmental impact of aviation.
It sounds like a lot of efforts are being made to reduce the use of leaded fuels in aviation and promote innovation in aviation propulsion. Can you discuss the impact of FAA Part 23 on the small aircraft aviation fuel industry and how it relates to the transition to unleaded fuels?
FAA Part 23 is a set of regulations that govern the certification of small aircraft in the United States. These regulations have been updated to encourage using unleaded fuels in small aircraft and promote innovation in aviation propulsion.
That's great to hear about FAA Part 23 and its efforts to encourage the transition away from leaded fuels in small aircraft. Can you tell us more about the specific policies that describe this transition and the challenges and limitations of their implementation?
Sure. The policies describe the requirements for aircraft manufacturers to demonstrate compliance with the environmental and performance standards set by the FAA. This includes the use of unleaded fuels and the implementation of innovative propulsion technologies. One of the challenges we face is ensuring that the transition to unleaded fuels is seamless and does not disrupt the small aircraft industry. Another challenge is ensuring that the alternative fuel sources being explored are technically and economically feasible.
In terms of our role, EAP is responsible for enforcing compliance with the regulations on lead emissions from aircraft. This includes monitoring and enforcing lead emissions from small aircraft and supporting the industry to help them transition to unleaded fuels.
We at NTSB have also been working to raise awareness about leaded fuels' harmful effects and promote the benefits of transitioning to unleaded fuels. By engaging with the public and industry stakeholders, we hope to build support for change and encourage more investment in alternative fuel technologies.
It sounds like there are a lot of challenges to overcome, but also many potential benefits to be gained from this transition. Can you discuss some of the new technologies or alternative fuels that are being explored to replace leaded fuels?
We are exploring a range of alternative fuel sources, including electric vertical takeoff and landing eVTOL vehicles, biofuels, and hydrogen-powered aircraft. These alternative fuels have the potential to significantly reduce the carbon footprint of aviation and provide more environmentally friendly options.
In terms of their environmental impact, these alternative fuels have lower emissions than traditional fuels and can help reduce aviation's overall impact on the environment.
It's important to note that these alternative fuels are still in the early stages of development. Many technical and regulatory challenges must be addressed before being widely adopted.
That's certainly true, but it's exciting to see the progress and potential for these alternative fuels to revolutionize the aviation industry. I think it's essential to continue supporting and investing in these technologies, research, and development to ensure a greener future for aviation.
We couldn't agree more. The FAA, EPA, and NTSB are committed to working together to reduce the use of leaded fuels in aviation and promote innovation in aviation propulsion. By finding solutions to these challenges, we can create a more sustainable and environmentally friendly future for aviation.
Well, that concludes episode 4 of Mindcast.
This is your host, Camaron Foster, and I want to thank you for joining me on another exciting episode of Mindcast. We've had the privilege of learning about the efforts of the FAA, EPA, and NTSB to reduce the use of leaded fuels in aviation and the promotion of innovation in propulsion. The potential of alternative fuels such as biofuels, hydrogen-powered aircraft, and electric propulsion to create a greener future for the aviation industry is truly inspiring. And we're committed to making these important topics accessible to all and exploring innovative solutions for the greater good. Thank you for being part of this journey, and we look forward to our next adventure together on Mindcast. Thank you.